In recent years, we've been encouraged to go to the Gnostic Gospels if we really want the inside track on the Jesus story. I noticed that Geza Vermesh has just done a new book which relies heavily on that and on the Dead Sea Scrolls. Dead Sea Scrolls say nothing whatever about Jesus because they're written before his birth. But let's turn to the Gnostic Gospels. Most people would never have heard of them had it not been for Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, which has topped the bestseller lists in country after country. Perhaps that's the convenient place to have a look at the Gnostics. At one level, Brown's book is a fascinating and fast-moving thriller with a mixture of suspense, sensuality, spiritual search, superstition, and revised paganism. Yet at a deeper level, it is a wholesale attack on Christianity. It sets out to undermine the credibility of the New Testament, the divinity of Christ, and the witness of the Church, particularly the Roman Catholic Church. What I mean, says Teabing, the chief protagonist of Brown's subplot, what I mean is that almost everything our fathers taught us about Christianity is false. It's hardly surprising that this grabbed the attention of the public, especially as Brown claimed on his fact page at the front of the book that his account is absolutely true. What are his aims? They're twofold. First, to demolish Orthodox Christianity by maintaining that Jesus was only human and was never proclaimed as divine until the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. And also to maintain that the New Testament Gospels are unreliable compared with what he thinks are the much older Gnostic Gospels. His second aim is to offer us the alternative of Gnostic thought and ancient goddess worship to come into our own society today. It's very cleverly done. Let's have a look at Brown's actual claims. First is that Jesus' status was upgraded to divinity by the Emperor Constantine at Nicaea for political reasons. Previously, he thinks Jesus had just been considered a great man. Second, he claims that the original Gospels, and of course, for him, the original Gospels are the Gnostic Gospels, show us the real mortal Jesus, and that they were suppressed and replaced by our 4 Gospels out of over 80 options. Enough of them, of the old ones, he thinks, survive to enable people like him to reconstruct the authentic Jesus from the Gnostic literature. Thirdly, he maintains that the Emperor Constantine financed a new Bible in the 4th century which omitted those Gnostic Gospels which spoke of Jesus' human traits and embellished those canonical Gospels, as we call them now, which made him godlike. Do you see what's happening? He's turning everything upside down. Are you with me? Are you with me? That the Gnostic ones are the early ones and the canonical Gospels are the late ones. That's the main claim. And finally, for good measure, he argues that Jesus got married to Mary Magdalene and they had a child who produced an ancient French royal dynasty. Well, now, points 3 and 4 can be quickly dismissed. It is the 4 canonical Gospels which speak of Jesus in very human terms for the main part, and it's the Gnostic Gospels that have got no interest whatsoever in the history and the humanity of Jesus. They see him as essentially divine, only appearing to be human, and being the dispenser of sort of theosophical theology. Brown has got it precisely the wrong way round. Moreover, there's not the slightest fragment of evidence anywhere before you go into Blackwell's and buy copies of the books that flood from it. There's no slightest evidence anywhere that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene and had a child. That is sheer imagination, and yet dozens of books subsequently written to Brown's have gone to town on it. But was Jesus considered divine before Nicaea? The New Testament is very clear about it. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In him dwells all the fullness of the Godhead in bodily form. There are many such claims in the New Testament, and the early Christians picked it up, and they were clear about it. Ignatius, around about 105 AD, God himself was manifest in human form. Clement, of Alexandria, around about 150, 160. It is fitting that you should think of Jesus Christ as God. Justin, writing in 140, more or less, claimed, the Father of the universe has a Son, and he is even God. Or Irenaeus, 180 AD, he is God as his name Emmanuel indicates. So much for the claim that Jesus was never thought to be divine before Nicaea. It's moonshine. But what about Brown's view of the superiority and antiquity of the Gnostic Gospels? First, we need to know a little bit about this strange half-Christian, half-pagan heresy. Gnosticism was a bizarre theosophical system of supposed knowledge, and it was reserved for the insiders, the elite, the few. It has a low view of matter, because matter belongs to the world, which was not made by God, but by an inferior deity, which they call the demiurge. Some humans, themselves of course, have a divine spark in them, a chip off the old divine block, which can be activated by knowledge, by gnosis. That's why they're called Gnostics. We've got the knowledge, we've got the inside track. And we're the guys that are headed for heaven, unlike the common herd of Christians who won't make it. Now this, of course, leads to pride, and it leads to separatism. And Gnostics had a very low view of women and of marriage. They saw the human problem not as sin needing redemption, but as ignorance needing illumination. Jesus, they thought, did not sully himself by becoming man. He only appeared to be human. And the cross is not atoning. Indeed, some Gnostics believe he never died on it. The shades of Islam to come. But merely appeared to. Gnosticism is a very mixed up theosophical system, and I assure you that I've made it appear a lot more simple than it really is. You've only got to read the original material, well published, for yourself. And that leads me to say this, that previously we only knew about Gnosticism from the Church Fathers who strongly attacked it. And then, in 1945, a big jar was dug up at a place called Nag Hammadi in Egypt. It contained, in whole or in part, some 52 volumes, mainly Coptic works, and mainly written in the late 4th century, when it seems this jar was sunk in the ground. None of these documents were Orthodox Christian things. Most of them were Gnostic. You've got a bit of the Republic of Plato thrown in, various other sort of mysterious things, but the bulk of them are Gnostic. And so, at long last, we have first-hand evidence of what this Gnostic stuff was that the early Church Fathers got so uptight about. And among them, there were 5 non-canonical so-called Gospels. This caused a lot of excitement, especially to sensationalists like Brown. The New Testament scholarly world took a much more sober view of them. Here are the main points. I haven't time to go into it in detail, but here are the main points to bear in mind as we evaluate them. 1, they are written more than 200 years later than the New Testament and are worthless for information. Secondly, they have a totally different and Gnostic worldview. Thirdly, they're not Gospels at all because they don't touch the birth and the lifestyle and the teaching of Jesus. They are mystic discourses that have no interest in the historical Jesus. Fourthly, none of them was even ever considered for inclusion in the canon of Scripture. The earliest of them is the Gospel of Thomas, and that was written, it seems, in the 2nd century. It's composed of 114 sayings of Jesus, half of them bearing some similarity to our Gospel sayings. But others are wildly different. Thomas directs disciples to discover the light within them, How different from Jesus's, I am the light of the world. Gnosticism has a lot in common with the modern human potential movement. And the final verse of Thomas makes Jesus say, I myself shall lead Mary in order to make her male, so that she too may become a living spirit resembling you males. For every woman who will make herself male will enter into the kingdom of heaven. Now that should be a great encouragement to some of you here today. There you have it. If a woman wants to enter the kingdom, according to this Gnostic theology, she'd better become a male. The Gospels of Philip and Mary are late 3rd century works, which Brown relies on a lot. The text is very uncertain. It existed in only one copy, and it is full of lacunae, full of gaps. Both books say that Jesus loved Mary more than the other disciples and used to kiss her. But kissing was non-erotic in antiquity, as in France today, and was very common. Brown assumes from all this that Jesus was a lover of Mary Magdalene, that he married her, that he was the original feminist, and he entrusted his church to her and not to Peter. There is, I need hardly say, no evidence for any of this. After all, his book is a novel. Brown regards the Gnostic books as feminist. In fact, they're completely the opposite. Gnostics had no time for women. The real issue with which the books deal is not feminism at all. It's all about the source of divine revelation. It looks as though it's a male-female thing, but it's not. The Gnostics who argued for secret revelation saw themselves as the downtrodden female, stomped underfoot by the male hierarchy of the church. They're abused by the Catholic man, Peter. And it was a struggle about the real meaning of Christianity. Was it the message of the New Testament guarded by the Catholic Church, or was it the secret revelations which the Gnostics claimed? Was it salvation for the many through the death and resurrection of Jesus, or was it the salvation for the elite by means of esoteric knowledge? My final question: has the new paganism advocated by Brown anything in it that's superior to the New Testament? I don't think I want to go into this very much, but Brown is keen to introduce a new paganism. He wants to do it under the guise of the feminine, to reinstate the feminine, which he sees as having been crushed by mainline Christianity, and of course there's some truth in that. But that's not his interest. He sees sex of any kind, as the highest route to spirituality. Orgasm is how you get transcendence, the only way you get transcendence. A flash of the divine in orgasm. There is for him ultimately no difference between good and evil. Back to what John Lennox was arguing so clearly this morning. All is one. That's the doctrine of monism, which is heavily embedded in Hinduism. And he cites one Gnostic saying with approval, which gives the whole game away. It comes in the tract, Thunder, Perfect Mind. And a woman who claims to be Isis says, notice this, I am the prostitute and the Holy One. I am the wife and the virgin. I am knowledge and ignorance. I am shame and shamelessness. I am truth and iniquity. Do you see what's being advocated? It's a spirituality that transcends the difference between right and wrong, transcends morality. You see, the heart of Brown's neo-Gnostic message is a recall to recover the goddess, and the goddess represents the age-old worship of nature, Gaia worship, very contemporary. And that's a very natural place to move if you reject a transcendent God. You say, right, this world is all there is. We better worship beauty and sex and anything else that we can find in this world, because there's nothing else. There is no world beyond this. There is no eternal life. This earth is all there is, and the new paganism frees you from moral scruples and eternal hopes to do your own thing in the here and now, which is all you'll ever have. whereas Christianity encourages you to get back in touch with your eternal Creator. So this way of thinking is the complete enemy of the Christian faith, and it's no wonder that the Church Fathers were so fierce in their denunciation of it.